Whether reason will prevail depends only partly upon us. We must hope and strive for the best. We must prepare for the worst.
So rare earth minerals, just to clarify, I don't want to be, I don't want to start with a clarification. So what I've written about is critical minerals. Rare earth minerals are these kind of are these minerals that actually China has taken. There's a great New York Times piece from a couple of weeks ago actually about how China had taken control of the rare earth minerals production and refining capacity, a global rare earth minerals refining and production capacity, and those are minerals that are used especially for magnets in technology, and they're used for a whole bunch of different applications. My book is really focused on critical metals. Rare earths come into it a little bit. Tantalum, which is mined in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, as coltan it is mentioned, which is used in transistors, which regulate power coming out of batteries. But the main minerals that I focus on are not rare earths. They're critical minerals, things like cobalt, nickel, copper, phosphate, lithium, and the sort of basket of those, subset of those critical metals I have focused on is a subset of battery metals, things that are used to produce lithium-ion batteries, which are these kind of amazing batteries which were first created in the 1970s, which allow us to store more power than any other form of battery technology until quite recently, and have allowed us to do it in a very small space. So these are the metals that power our world. They power our laptops, they power our cell phones, they power our electric cars, they power our Ori rings. If you like some family members of mine like to measure your heartbeat and sleep patterns and things like that, that's a lithium-ion battery. So it basically allows us to have very small electronic devices that are powered from their own power sources. Yeah, so lithium-ion batteries have basically permeated every corner of the world. I mean, there's barely a moment that goes by in your day, if you're living in the US, that is not touched by a lithium-ion battery. I mean, your cell phones are powered by them. And Tesla, obviously, or not obviously, but Tesla definitely as well realized the power of the lithium-ion battery. In fact, before Elon Musk even came on board with the first Teslas being powered by basically laptop batteries put in series, and so I guess the foundation of Musk's wealth is not just the car but also the battery, and his realization, which really, I mean, Tesla really was the first company to begin using lithium-ion batteries in cars at any sort of scale. And they were the company, and I document this in the book, that pushed other large automakers in the US to start considering lithium-ion batteries. Before that, there had been a series of electric cars. I mean, electric cars have existed since cars have existed since the 19th century, but most of those had used some formulation of lead acid battery, which did not give you enough power, did not give you enough range in the formulations that existed, and so I guess the move to lithium-ion batteries allowed Tesla to become this, giant behemoth car company that we see today. Yeah, so we have to distinguish between two types of mining, and this is what the mining industry calls industrial mining, which are these large-scale mines, which are basically the same as anywhere else in the world, and artisanal mining. Artisanal mining, which represents something around 20% of cobalt mining in the DRC, which is a large amount if you think about it. There was one guy who was saying, actually, if you think about it, it's the world's largest cobalt company if you put all artisanal mining together, because all of the other ones don't match up to that 20%. That number fluctuates over the years, and the DRC is trying now to clamp down on it with some limited success. But basically, you get, the day in the life of Ziki, who is that artisanal miner who I interviewed. He was a kid who had been his family was his parents died in an auto accident, and then his aunt took him in, and then sort of sent him to work for the family at a very, very young age, sort of 3-4 years old. And very young kids are sent to sort through the minerals, and then as they grow older, they're actually sent into these thin, suffocating tunnels, or narrow, suffocating tunnels, in which they are sort of chipping away at the rock face and bringing up sacks of minerals. And it's very, very dangerous because there's very limited oxygen. The tunnels can collapse, especially during the rainy season, and they have very few protections. Often this work is done kind of in the dark. Sometimes literally in the dark, sometimes at night, but also just for a kind of black market of metals, a black market of ore, which is completely unregulated, and there is very little focus on safety and so on, and especially where child miners are involved, which is it's completely illegal in the DRC as well. We have to remember this. It may be the only job that Ziki can do, but Ziki should have been in school those years. And when I met him, he was at a school, and he was through a sort of almost kind of, just a very, very lucky turn of events. He was able to leave the mines, and was able to get to a charity school, and continue his education. But most of these kids are not. They're working in these really, really grueling conditions, and nobody really knows how many children there are. There are some estimates that go up to about 40,000. I don't think those are necessarily correct. Those have been done on extrapolations from smaller surveys, and some other estimates which say a couple of thousand, which seems on the low side as well. So I think that the difficult thing, and I'm answering far beyond your question here, so forgive me, but want to get me started on this. Yeah, exactly, long form. The difficult thing about this, about counting the amount of children in these mines, is that there is no real framework. Mark Canavera, who's an expert on child labor at Columbia University, told me this quite early on during my research. There's no real framework to consider who is a child miner and who is not. And some people are there, some days, and they work, they'll work for a portion of their time in the mines. But there is not a strong, there is no sort of census of this stuff. So we don't actually know how much of a problem it is, but a problem it is, which many people will deny to you. You speak to people and say, the problem of child mining has been legislated away in Congo. That's just not true. The fact is that there are still probably many thousands of children going down into the mines every day, all working in quite toxic situations around the mines, and toxic not just in terms of like health effects, but also in terms of, there's prostitution, drug abuse. There are a whole bunch of other things that attend this practice, and obviously it's really, really negative. That said, all of that said, and I think it's very, very important to consider this, that if you were simply to cut that lifeline, if you were simply to cut that practice of artisanal mining, which is enshrined as well in the Congolese constitution for adults to mine, to go down into the mine and to use, non-industrial techniques to take ore out of the mines, and with a registered cooperative. It's very important to say that. So you group together and you go and get a registration, and then you're supposed to go down. You're supposed to work within certain framework and so on. That activity supports a huge number of families. I mean, perhaps millions of people, if you consider extended family members who are being supported by that activity. So if you were to cut that lifeline, it would also be really, really problematic. And I think the Congolese government is seeing that now as they're trying to limit artisanally mined cobalt. They're trying to put these quotas on. Funny enough, though, one of the effects that has had has been the increase of the price of cobalt, which makes more people go down to take part in artisanal mining and helps the illegal trade in these minerals to flourish. So it's a kind of whack-a-mole situation, and it's very, very difficult to understand what, especially in terms of this kind of supply-demand type, these levers can actually help. My general view on this, and again, I've gone way beyond your question, so feel free to cut in. But my general view on this is and this has arisen from many conversations with people in the region, is that people need another economic activity that is not just mining. The alternatives to mining are very, very limited in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in the Southern Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's a country that has been at war for basically since 1997. It's gone through dictatorship. It's gone through kleptocracy. It's a very, very corrupt country. So for many people, there are very few alternatives. There's a limited amount of farming, which hasn't been particularly developed. I mean, they import something like 90% of their food in the south of the DRC, which is insane because if you look at it, it's a very, very fertile part of the world. And, what farms there are actually quite productive and quite successful. So I do think that there is something to be said for agriculture, something to be said for developing other industries beyond mining. One of the government's solutions for this has been to try to move up the supply chain, or at least rhetorically say that we're going to build batteries in the DRC. I actually think that that's really short-sighted because one of the problems that the DRC has is power generation. And I go into this a little bit in the book at the end. And without a steady source of power, you have a situation in which the country is, you have a situation in which you can't run factories, you can't have industrial processes working at a kind of regular clip, and so I don't think any battery manufacturer worth their salt will be will want to invest in the DRC under those conditions. Corruption, lack of power generation, and also insecurity. So the question is, what other types of businesses can the DRC build? And I think that the options are fairly limitless. But I think it's about improving infrastructure, improving the basics, and then getting to the things like making batteries and becoming a tech hub and all the things that they're talking about, rather than putting the cart before the horse. I think it's a more gradual form of building, which is perhaps unsexy in political terms, but would actually provide the fundaments for a society that works and a society that is not based on stealing.